I think you're the first person I've talked to so far on the new season of the podcast that has a beard bigger than mine. I'm happy to lose
Yeah.
to you, though. I gotta say.
Yeah, I should probably do something about it, but it's just a marker of the passage of time, really.
There it is. See, every person with a beard says the same thing. Like maybe we should get rid of it, but no, let's let it go.
Yeah,
I'm all for
yeah,
it, man.
just let it go. Yeah, I mean, until I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens after that. Actually, like if it just keeps going, like, is there a moment where it just kind of becomes like dready? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think of Santa Claus. I'm like, as soon as I get to Santa, then I'll be like good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, plus I feel like at a certain point you can't go back because then it
Yeah,
almost be like
exactly.
it's like time travel because you become a baby.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I mean, I've had a beard since I was 19, and I haven't seen my face since then. To be honest, I'm kind of scared about what's underneath.
Well, it's like you get used to it. It's like a friend, you know? But I really am excited to meet you, man. I mean, so I just want to learn more about your background, man. I mean, from what I've heard, you're from Oklahoma, actually, which I didn't know until
Yeah.
very recently. I didn't read enough of the real origin stories. But then apparently you were like, you got to tell me more on this. You were raised in Paris, though, and then you find yourself in New York, and a lot of your lo-fi sound, which I really enjoy, is very like New York influenced it sounds. But I'd love to hear like your upbringing, especially as it relates to music.
Yeah. So I tell I'll just tell you the whole thing. A lot of
Please.
times I'll just tell like it's just kind of a complicated story, so I usually try and simplify it and just be like, I'm from Oklahoma and I'm in New York or whatever. But basically, born in Oklahoma, everybody's there, mom and dad, grandma, or they were grandma, whatever. 10 years old, my mom decides to follow her dreams after having 4 kids and become a lawyer in Paris, an international lawyer, an international arbitrator. Um, yeah, I know. Not really the order of things you usually do it, but so found a law school that had a exchange program with Paris. So actually moved to Vermont. Sometimes I include that detail, but for 2 years I lived in Vermont that's actually where I learned guitar because a lot of snow, not a lot to do in the winter. Can't really go outside. um, and then when I was 12 or 13, we moved to Paris. And so that's really where like I had my formative kind of years as a high school student running amok and whatever. But and it was funny, actually, like New York never really, I mean, when I was applying to colleges, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go back to America and indebt myself for life, I might as well do it somewhere that like go big or go home, basically. So I basically only applied to like all the colleges that I'd heard of, which are like Harvard and Stanford and whatever. And I got into Columbia. But the funny thing is, I didn't know that Columbia was in New York until
Did you think it was
after
something else, or you just never knew where it actually was?
I just thought it was like, yeah, in Western Massachusetts or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was
it
just
feels
like,
like it could, like in terms of vibe,
exactly.
it feels like it could be there.
Totally. Absolutely. So when I learned it was in New York City, I was like, okay, cool. But also kind of scary because then when I went to go visit it, like they drop you off in Times Square, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like this is not what not what I want. But as soon as I really just started to walk, and that's really like what it comes down to for me is like being able to walk a place makes it just magical. And pretty much like immediately I was like, oh my gosh, this place is actually perfect for me because I loved the walkability of Paris and I love Paris and like, you know, feel like some of my identity lies there, but at the same time I'm not French and like I was definitely the American growing up in Paris, so never really felt like totally on their team, but definitely didn't feel like totally Oklahoman either. And so getting to New York, realizing like all you got to do is complain about the subway and you are a New Yorker. um, really like just and just like tapping into the energy of the place because I'm someone who's like gets very excited very easily. So it was just like, wow, this is the place for me. And I got to know everything I can about it. So I decided to get myself a license to be a tour guide. Started to give tours of New York, just like really went all in. And the funny thing is like, I don't know, I've done music since I was like 10 or 11 years old in Vermont, but had never actually like said out loud to myself that that's what I wanted to do. It was just kind of like what I gravitated towards. And in college, I actually didn't, I mean, I played in a few bands and stuff like that, but I started a music blog as an excuse to talk to musicians, because that was my passion, was really like talking to people and learning their stories and whatever. And and then as soon as I started, then when I realized that it was so easy to throw shows like in basements and other unsafe places, and like New York is really easy to get a touring band just like who wanted to throw another show onto their whatever. So I started to throw like, at first I was throwing like a show a month, and it was like a monthly thing, and it just gets addictive, like how easy it is. I mean, it's not easy, it's a lot of work, but how it could actually be pulled off, and like bands can actually get paid, and like people can be happy, and it's just like all it takes is a ridiculous amount of labor. So I was throwing like a show a week just because it was so amazing. And that was basically, and then this is crazy, but like I found a space at Columbia in a building, which is really weird because there's like no space in New York. That was an abandoned TV studio, funnily enough. Had all this crazy equipment in it. The student group that was responsible for maintaining it had disbanded. Um, and the only reason I had access because I worked for the IT department, and there was a network closet in there. So like no one had access to it. It was like so random and so perfect. And I was like, oh my God, let's discreetly use this as a recording studio. So I just hit up all my friends that had music gear. We started to put music gear in there. And then like eventually the administration found out what we were doing. And I was like, well, there's a grant that we could apply for. And since there's already all this shit in there, like, let's just make this a recording studio. So that ended up becoming a recording studio, which I ran it was really just my last semester of my senior year. It was kind of like, sweet, there's a recording studio now. But like all this is just to say is like, I was I've always been very, very focused on like just the community aspect of music, not really like the music itself. And it wasn't really until I graduated college, I was like, wait, I write songs all the time. And I
So were
should
you
just do this.
producing in this studio, or were you just inviting your friends who were musicians and other musicians in to record randomly, or what was it? What was the vibe like of this place you built?
The vibe was very, very like, let's identify who knows the most and make them teach us. And like, let's run workshops, let's like whatever. And myself, I'd say generally my expertise was just like getting everybody together, making things happen. But I'd say like my strength was definitely like engineering, just because it's really easy and you can just like know where to put a mic and like I know about mics. But definitely there were people who, were mixers, were more full-on producers, the artists. But I was really just kind of like trying to facilitate the whole thing and get it going before I left that place. And then once I did, I was like, now it's my turn to to do this. And I just did it in my bedroom.
Well, so much of innovation starts with like curiosity and just like love for what you're
Sure.
doing. And it sounds like one of the things I love about that story is it sounds like you really were driven just by how much fun it is to have other people have fun. And so clearly
Exactly.
that's how you bring other people together, when you genuinely care about them having a good time. Because that sounds like a really open and fun place to be, because when you have a place where people can share information, but also if you're not as good, you can just kind of like think about it as a place to go learn or experience.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So is that where
exactly.
you
That's
developed your sound then, though? Is that where you sort of honed your skills? Was it then, or was it before then?
It was actually after. It was actually so right after college I started a band called Holy Ride, that was kind of where I honed things. But it was a band. It was really a band. Like I wrote the songs, but for the most part, but it was somewhat collaborative, and some of their songs were written by other people in the band. But it was like I was not the singer. I was just like the rhythm guitarist, and I was just coming up with chord progressions and stuff. And I guess it was like a big experiment because like we started an Instagram account, started Spotify, and all these things. And I had really, when I was interviewing bands and everything like that, I was really part of the Bandcamp wave when like Bandcamp was, I mean, still is obviously a big part of my music discovery and whatnot. But that was like the end all be all for me, and blogs. But 2013, 2014 blogs were already pretty much on the way out, and now like blogs are great, but they're not going to blow up the next Vampire Weekend or whatever. It's going to be a Spotify playlist, like people know that now. So I had to kind of like go through a whole new learning experience of like Spotify playlists and Instagram, like kind of the new priorities for musicians. And I could kind of, and the thing is like it was really really fun, and I'm still like best friends with all the guys that I was in the band with. But what became pretty immediately clear was that like you have to put yourself out there constantly. It's like a lot of admin work that it doesn't have anything to do with music. And but that's the thing, is like I'm pretty well suited for that because I love doing all that stuff. Like I think it's just part of the fun, and like me coming at it from a perspective of like, yeah, I used to not get to do any of the fun stuff like play the shows or whatever. I was just emailing people, making sure people got paid, whatever. So I was like, I can do that and the music. I can do everything. um, but yeah, and it was kind of like as soon as I realized that you really, because we were just like, oh, I mean, I knew what type of guitar tone I like, which is like a big part of the sound, and I was writing the song, so it was like I was kind of getting at it, but it was still, I wasn't going niche enough, I guess. Um, that's what I kind of learned from that, is that you need to really double down on whatever you're going for, whether that be like lo-fi or whatever, like just push it to not the complete total extreme, but like don't don't just be like I am an indie artist, because that's like going to be really hard to get anybody to look at you, because there's billions of indie artists. You have to, even though like labels are ridiculous and I think they're like totally hilarious, I was like, wow, if I just call myself a bedroom pop lo-fi whatever, immediately some people's ears will prick up. So I kind of like got savvy to that, and I was like, okay. And that's really like where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make something that I really want to hear. Or I mean, like I was always trying to do that, but I was like, I'm just gonna make, yeah, something like that if I stumbled upon on Bandcamp or whatever, I'd be like, oh wow, I really like that. So yeah, it was kind of that period with that band. And Holy Ride stuff is still out there. It's still good. Still really good stuff. And Julian, the main singer, is like a much better singer than me.
So this new phenomenon of how people disseminate music and take in music, I mean, both
Yeah.
this sort of aesthetic that you need to have, like this constant content on an artist level, but also the playlisting, obviously, and the way that people listen to music has changed so much. Do you find
Yeah.
yourself having, because it sounds like you just sort of identified one of your niches that you best play in lo-fi, and you sort of overtly said it as opposed to maybe being more general in the past? Because I think what I'm trying to ask is, I think a lot of artists are struggling with this because they think of
Mhm.
themselves as artists who love music. And especially
Right.
now, a lot of us have come up listening to tremendous amounts of different style genres. So, like, on one
Totally.
hand, we're almost like post genre, but like in a world
Right.
where your discovery is based on specific niches that you play into, maybe even in sound, there's like, in a way, almost more pressure to be even hyper specific in your genre. Has that changed the way that you write and make music, or did you just find that it was a way that you just articulate the music that you've made? Is it a marketing thing for you, or is it actually steeped into the way that you make and write music?
I would say it's mostly just a marketing thing, because I agree that most artists like don't typically think in terms of genre when they're sitting down to make music. Um, I have had kind of like my artistic growth or whatever has just been kind of like one long, or like every day I just have to remind myself to let go, kind of. And it's just been a really gradual letting go of my inhibitions, or letting go of, fears or whatever, and just seeping yourself into the doing of it. So I really try to not. The only time I would say that like the algorithm really like comes into my music making process is once the song's already written and everything's there. I have a habit of being like, what's the best part of the song? Put that song first, or put that part first. Now that's the verse, and I have a great verse. Now I have to write an even better chorus. Um, and sometimes, like for that track Lo-Fi that I did, and it was funny because like I didn't even, that was like, I didn't even like, I wasn't even like trying to take over that term, whatever, like that. It was just funny because this song used to be called Low Side. I don't even remember exactly why I called it Lo-Fi. Anyway, the song used to have an intro that was just me playing the chords, right? Like dun 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 dun. The only time I've ever like really thought of Spotify in terms of like writing songs was with that song, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put the riff right from the get-go, like just right, like just hook, like this is for you, algorithms. Like
Clearly, it worked too, because that's one of your top songs on Spotify, isn't it?
absolutely,
Huh.
absolutely. And like, I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it. Like, there's kind of, it's obvious what they want. They either want you to be very hooking from the beginning or to be background music, because those are the things that stream well. Those are the most streamable kind of tracks. And forget it. Try and forget it, unless like, but that's funny because that's the thing with that song Lo-Fi is like, as much as it is, me, a personal expression of my joy and excitement and everything like that. That was like one of the first tracks I put out that I was like, this track is really to bring people to the table. Because I don't know, it is a part of the first album, but I kind of wrote it to be like a standalone single to just try and like bring people to see what I had to say, and I got catchy riffs.
So if that's bringing them to the table, what are you going to have them eat? Like who are you as the artist?
So, that's a great question. Okay, so I have a whole story to tell. That's the thing, is like I
Yeah.
have a whole, and it's albums long is the thing. I just can't spoil. I'm really bad at keeping secrets. So, so I'll just tell you like the next album, which hopefully I'm talking to the label I got signed to not this year, last year. Wow. About the rollout. Hopefully it'll be out in the summer. And it's like it's a superhero concept album. Loose concept album, because I feel like any concept album is too strict. It goes into kind of like sci-fi opera territory, like a little too much. Like the best concept album in my opinion is Sgt. Pepper's, obviously, and that's honestly because it's so loose. Like 2 of the songs are really about Sgt. Pepper's and like the rest are just kind of songs. And that's kind of what I'm not trying to like do Sgt. Pepper's at all. You'll know when I am. But but it's just like I got more stories to tell. And I'm not trying to like bait and switch anybody and be like, but I just knew that from the beginning, with a jangly guitar and a baseball cap, I would be Mac DeMarco. And people would be like, oh my God, it's like a Mac DeMarco kind of guy. And I'm like, cool, I got you. And then as soon as you get here, you're going to realize that there's a lot more to it. It's just going to be a fun ride. I just want to like get as many people as I can on the ride before we take off. I mean, you can hop on at any point, but it'll
Yeah.
be fun for people who've been here from the beginning.
So is that how you think about songwriting then? Are you aiming to do concept albums, or like are you thinking about stories that you're trying to tell and deliver through music, or is it emotions you're trying to tap into? Is it none of that? How do you sort of think about making music?
I think about it as sort of like everywhere that you've visited, like physically, each city, I wager has given you a specific feeling. Like whenever I visited Amsterdam, I got a very specific feeling that was very distinct from the first time I ever went to Mexico City. And they're so specific in particular, and I can return to those places and get a similar feeling. And that's kind of what I want to do with different albums. I'm also working in kind of an old fashioned way of like an album tradition. I know like it's all about singles right now, and definitely that affects the way I release music. Like back in the day, you'd release like two singles for like a 12-track album,
Mhm.
and I'm releasing like 5 or 6 singles for a 12-track album, just because that's the way people consume music. But I still don't want to give up on the album as like the place. And so I'm kind of trying to make all these places that sometimes they're stories, like the next one's going to be kind of a story. I have another one that I don't know if I should be doing this, but it's fine. It's so cool. They don't tell me the rules. Sometimes they get angry at me, but then I'm like, anyway, there's one called Internet Explorer that is just kind of like frustrate. It's kind of about the feelings that the internet evokes. Well, mostly focusing on the dark side and the
Mhm.
frustration and the anxiety. And that one is just like it's way more Pixies. I'm a huge, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
literally drinking Pixies water bottle.
Love it.
And like, yeah. And like, definitely that's not my vibe right now. It's gratitude and love. And those are definitely things I feel most of the time. But, I've got some frustration in me. We all do. So that will be its own place down the line. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do is make these little islands of sound and places that people can return to. There's so many albums, and that's the thing is like albums are the things that have been really important to me. As important as songs have been and playlists have been, albums are the places that I can return to and kind of, cocoon myself around. Like some of those Pixies albums, they're just really good novels as the way I think about them, like novels that you can just reread and reread. And I love short stories and I love poems, but I'm trying to work with a novel type format kind of deal,
I love it.
for
And
the
I
world.
think that there's still a big place for albums too. I think sometimes it's more of just a gift to your best fans. Like it's like a
Yeah,
gift for actually following you, whereas you could come and interact with your singles and like them.
exactly.
The album is really the insight into who you are. And I think
Right.
especially now with and the emotions that you want to convey and the experiences you want to give people, I really like the way you're thinking about it. Especially now too, where I feel like a lot of artistry is about getting people to be interested in you and the stories that you tell, because then
Mhm.
you can have that creative leeway. I think like the hard part is getting there, right? Because then you kind of have to ask the audience to pay attention and care. And then when they do, it's easy then to do whatever you want and really create. So it's really cool. I love the way you're thinking about a lot of different things too. Cause I think, you know, it is hard sometimes too to acknowledge and compartmentalize some of these other aspects of ourselves, even if they're things that maybe aren't overarching, but you need to share in a very intense way through music. Frustration and
Absolutely.
anxiety is certainly a good one, especially
Yeah.
now. So, how do you think about music as a consumer of music too? Do you look for these experiences? Do you look to other people for experiences in music, or how do you
Yeah.
interact with and use music?
I mean, I feel like I'm a consumer first. Actually, funny that you say like I feel like I'm a creator, artist, whatever, second. And consuming is what I do all the time. Like 24/7 I've got music on somewhere. And yeah, it's tougher and tougher, I mean it's easier and easier for consumers. It's tougher and tougher to be on both sides and see both sides um, go in these directions. Because as a consumer, there's 80,000 songs put on Spotify every day. So you just can't hear it all. And there's a lot of great stuff you're missing. A lot of really great stuff. Um, and there's plenty of resources to go find. There's a lot of like awesome Spotify users that I follow who make great playlists. That's probably the first place I'll go these days to try and circumvent the algorithm, is to just like look for what people that
How do you
I
find
like.
those users? I always love asking people find music. How do you find those Spotify users? That's a really interesting technique.
Word of mouth, because that's still the best way. Never discount word of mouth. Just like, I have cool people in my life and I say, do you know any of these users that make cool playlists and stuff like that? I still go to like Aquarium Drunkard and Gorilla vs. Bear and those old timey places, you know, to look for new music. And I will listen to my daily mix every once in a while, you know, despite not being a super big fan of the algorithm, it still knows me quite well.
Yeah. I feel like it at least knows a part of me very well. So I kind of know it's like similar to you where it's like when I know that part of me is what I want to hear, then I go straight to it because it does a good job.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's very, and that's the thing is like it's become so easy to find music that I like, but just like you were saying about being post genre and like incredibly entrenched in genre is like what Spotify has identified about me when it shows me my like 6 different daily mixes is like, here's this very specific niche that we know you like, here's another very specific niche we know you like. And yeah, when I get DM'd by people, you know, they'll be like, oh my God, like, yeah, you were on my playlist with Boyo and Brad Stank and blah, blah. And these people who like, I know we're in a bubble together being fed to certain people. And so, yeah, obviously that influenced, and I think the way I have kind of compartmentalized that is that I had to do that in the beginning. And now that I've reached a certain, you know, whatever it is, like 30,000 monthly listeners or whatever, now that I've reached like a certain level, the algorithm thinks it knows me, which is good. So it's feeding me to, there's like a kind of a constant, like, I know I'm going to get a certain amount of streams every day because of the algorithm feeding it to people. And now I feel a bit freed from that, honestly, ever since I like felt like I had not made it, you know. I have a job that's not music, and I will for a bit. But I don't feel like I have to push that branding so hard anymore, and I can just kind of put stuff out now that I feel like I have some people at the table now. You know?
Well, it's a really interesting insight too into how artists have to navigate that initial process because I think you are at a really interesting point as an artist, which is partially why we got so interested. Is like you really are at that inflection point, I think, too, where you have a really solid following, you know, but you're not huge yet. But you can see where it's going. Plus, you've only put out really one album, so it's just really fun because you can also tell that you're only just beginning. And we share a similar joy. I love the name as well. Keeps coming up now on my playlist as well as I was listening to you more and more. It's popping up all the time. So yeah, I mean, just to go quickly into the songs that you've made as well. Do you have a favorite song? I know you talked about lo-fi, but do you have a favorite song that you've made or a song that has a particular story to it that you might want to quickly tell?
So there's 3 songs that come to mind immediately, which I know is not a very good answer to your question, but the first one is Too Fast, because that one just came immediately all at once to me. It was just like, and it's a 2-chord song, and I love 2-chord songs because they're just very simple. Heroes by David Bowie is a 2-chord song, you know, something like that. Not saying it's Heroes, but anyway. Too Fast because it was just like I knew exactly what I wanted to say. It was a very simple message, and it just felt right, you know, and it just all came out at once, and it's under 90 seconds, which is hilarious to me. The second one is That the One? That one I felt really good while I was writing it. And the bridge that comes right before the chorus was from a different song that was really sad that I had to throw it out. And I got to recycle it. And usually I'm very afraid of doing that because it'll sound Frankenstein-y and very convoluted. But I feel like it works there. And it's also about my grandma. And she always wanted a song about her. So that was just like nice to throw all together in one. And then finally is Joe Fusco. It's really the songs that I write for specific people that come to mind. Joe Fusco being about my best friend who I lived with for the first 2 years after college. And just like, I know exactly where I was when I was writing it. I know exactly how I was feeling. And it was for his birthday. His birthday's one day after mine, so we have the same party. I don't know what we're going to do this year, but so that's actually the second Joe Fusco song, and there is a third because I have a tradition now of writing him a song for his birthday. But I remember, like, yeah, we played it at our my birthday party, I played it for Joe with the full band, and I just remember him like losing his shit, and like it was, yeah, that was really nice. That was really fun.
What a gift to give a friend. That's amazing. I love that tradition too. Oh,
Yeah.
that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, because I think oftentimes, I mean, when we listen to music too, obviously music that really touches us always has a story behind it. But it is so interesting too to remember that on the other side of that story that we have and all the exponential stories that people might have connected to a song, there's the
Hmm.
song of or there's the story of the creator. And in this
Yeah.
case, it's really beautiful that you can think of your, like, I wrote these songs for him. I wrote this song for him on his
And that
birthday,
song,
our birthday. That's beautiful.
yeah, exactly. And that song has really taken on a life of its own because, or I mean, like, there's just been a lot of stories that have come out of it. Like, I remember I got booked for a show one time, and the band we were opening for came up to me and they were like, "Hey, man, like, you know that I have a best friend named Joe Fusco, and the reason that I found you is because you have that song Joe Fusco." And I was like, "What? That's crazy!" And it was just really funny. And like, he's like, "I need you to meet Joe Fusco." And I didn't get to meet. I think he called him on FaceTime. And he was like, "This is Joe Fusco," and so I got to meet this other Joe Fusco. I was like, sick. And then Joe is on a hockey team, and they somehow found that song. He hadn't told them about it, and they all fell in love with it and started singing in the locker room. And it became their hockey team's like theme song. So they're all like Joe Fusco. So like then one time I came and watched one of his games, and one of the players' wives came up to me and was like, "Excuse me, are you a singer?" And I was like, "Kinda." And then she was like, "I think I know you. I think I've heard your song Joe Fusco." I'm like, "What?"
Oh my gosh.
So that was really funny.
It reminds me of I went to Kenyon College, which is like a small liberal arts
Oh
college
yeah, I know
in the
Kenny.
hills of Ohio. And when
Yeah.
I was there, it was like they were like seniors or something when I was like a freshman or sophomore. This one
Yeah.
band kept performing every time. It was like our house band, it was the school's band. They were called Walk the Moon. They would perform
Okay.
all the time. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're now very big, but
Ooh.
it was like every time they would perform. But one of the songs that they made that became quite successful off their first album was called Anna Sun. And it
Uh-huh.
was actually the lore around it. And this is debated. So I don't even know if this is true or not. But the story that I had always heard was that song, when it was first written, they were trying to figure out, they had the chorus. They're like, it's da na 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 and na 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 na. And they're like, I can't figure out what to do with the na na na. And they were like, and one person was like sitting there and had a class with a professor who was like the sweetest woman alive. Her name's Anna Sun, just a beautiful professor of sociology. And he goes, "Hey, Anna Sun kind of works in there." And so they wrote the song about her. And now she's been a professor, is still a professor at Kenyon College, and was like, "It's so weird. I don't even know these guys that well." They wrote a song, obviously, like everybody knows her now from that very famous song.
That
So the
is
Fusco
so
song seems I love those kinds of stories too.
yeah.
That's so cool. Well, you listed a bunch of artists that you've been looking at and that kind of inspire you, but are there any other artists that inspire you or you've been listening to now? I mean, I hate asking this question because I know it's so difficult, but in this moment right now, is there an artist or someone who's just inspiring you, one of the many that might be inspiring you?
Let me see. Whoa. Sorry, I just got an email saying that my Amazon package with Navy SEAL tactical flashlight will be delivered on Friday. And I did not order that at all.
Wow, what? All right, nice.
I know. I'm
Get a
like,
new
what?
flashlight, man.
Yeah, right. Let me just look at my last Spotify playlist and
Yeah, let's
see
see
what.
it. Let's see it.
Well, actually, no. Off the top of my head, there's this artist in the Philippines named Ruru. I don't know if you know her. Ruru,
No.
RU, that
Okay.
is very inspiring to me. I really, 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 really like her stuff.
I gotta write this
This
down.
band, yeah, you got to write them down. Another band, Mammalarkey. Do you know Mammalarkey?
No.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love Mammalarkey. They've got a
Okay.
song called "You Make Me Smile." I mean, I love all their songs, but "You Make Me Smile" makes me levitate. Um,
Love it.
I've actually, yeah. So those are two artists that like have been consistently putting out music, doing live streams, like that have been inspiring, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we're still doing it. Um, Man, yeah, my playlists are so random. So I really like Strawberry Guy too. He's been blowing up lately. You know
Strawberry
Strawberry Guy?
guy? No,
Oh yeah,
he's great.
the Strawberry Guy. Oh, dude,
Mhm.
Strawberry Guy's great. Came out with an EP last year that was like blew my mind. Um, but yeah, recently I've been listening. I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of Laraji. You know
Oh
Laraji?
yes, yes, very cool,
Yeah,
very cool.
Vision Songs Volume One has like just been on in the background all the time lately. Um, but yeah, I mean, as much as I like, I'm always listening to music. I'm always taking in influences, whatever. I'm very much in my own world too.
Yeah.
like, like I feel very so. There's like the past few months I've been working on something that I might announce today or next week, which is actually I think I've got a copy of it somewhere. Um,
Ooh, yeah.
wrote a small book of poetry that my dad actually ended up illustrating. And so for the past like couple months or something, I've been working on. So here it is. It's very small.
Oh,
Yeah. So my dad did all the drawings. I'm like super, super happy with it. It's like tiny. This is my hand and this
yeah.
is the
I
book.
love your fingernails, by the way.
Oh, thanks. um, but yeah, I was like, man, I want to do an audiobook for this. Like, and I've never like thought about the audiobook format. So I was like, I'm not going to do any research. I'm not going to try and make this. I don't know. I'm just going to see what I'm just going to do what I would do. So I've been just working on an audiobook, which I just finished a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, I guess I'll put it on Spotify. I've never thought about putting an audiobook on Spotify, but
Very, very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, you know, so I was just kind of like in my cave. And I was like, I'm not going to use that much guitar on this. I want to just try and like poke around on synths and stuff and see what sounds good with my voice. So yeah, so that's cool.
Fun. Well, and what's the best place for people to keep up with you then? I know I really like your presence on Instagram. Obviously, there's Spotify.
Yes, all those are good, but I'd say the best direct way is I just started doing a newsletter, which has like actually really been a really liberating for me because as much as I think my Instagram is definitely where I'm at the most, and it's where I'll people DM me and I'll talk to them, and it's like it's a great format for me. It doesn't work for some people, but I like it just because I can just do whatever I want. But the thing is, you can do whatever you want because of the statistics involved, and that's what I don't like. Is like everybody can see how many likes it gets and comments and whatever, and like
Mhm.
there's just something icky with putting a number to things like it's a popularity contest or whatever. So with the newsletter, I really like it because I get to say whatever the heck I want. I can make it as long as I want. I don't have to put a face in it because it doesn't have any likes or comments associated with it. So yeah, so I think jwfrancis.com is the place where to sign up for that. But yeah, and I just like it's just me talking when I got news.
I love it. Yeah, people should sign up. I'm on the list too. I can't wait to see what you got. I
Yeah.
have to ask you because I also just heard via your Instagram as well that you're going to be
Oh, yeah.
doing a dream machine. So you're going to be looking
Yes.
at different dreams. So please tell. I love talking about dreams, although I
Oh, really?
tragically remember so few. Like actually, I had this thing
Oh,
where I used to wake up in the morning and record myself saying what I dreamt.
dude,
So
send me
I
those
highly
voice recordings.
yeah, and I highly recommend. I will, and I highly recommend that you try it as well if you haven't, because for me, I was having the problem where I'd wake up and be like, I just had the coolest dream, and then I'd
Yeah.
go and like by noon, it was in shambles in my mind where
Yeah.
I like couldn't remember it all. I kind of remembered part of it. I wasn't sure if I was making it up, but it's fun to hear yourself like really sleepy. Be like,
Yeah, I love groggy
that's
voice.
cool.
I love so a couple of people have asked me, or a couple of people have sent groggy voice memos of them reading dreams, and I think I'm just gonna make it a segment on the show of like, let's check in with whoever, and like it's just like and it's like I think it's gonna be great because people, what fascinates me about dreams is the most is dream logic, the way the fact that like you without really question, but also knowing that it's kind of wrong, like accept a whole new logic paradigm. And it makes sense in the dream. Like last night, I remember because I do this every morning. I just write my dreams down.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I'm a big. I really try to listen to my dreams because there's some crazy stuff going on in there. Last night I had this. Well, actually, let me just see because I'm starting to forget it.
See, that's why it's so good to
um,
record it.
exactly. Okay, so oh, so I don't drive. I've never driven, never been behind the wheel of a car, but I was driving a big truck, and on top of it was what was called a giant junior car. And it was like basically a mini monster truck. But it was on top of the bigger truck, and in a big speakerphone, like how like politicians will like speak while they're driving a car. It was saying, "I can't tell if it's too big or not." Um, so I'm like driving around the neighborhood with this megaphone saying, "I can't tell if it's too big or not," and there's a car on top of the truck. So like that was,
Did you ever
and it
find out
makes.
if it was too big or not?
I don't think it was because I was driving around with it and it wasn't toppling over. That actually I haven't really. You
Oh,
normally
wow.
I
So
wake
the
up.
process of driving itself answered the question then.
Right. I think that is okay. So yeah, I think that is the lesson because every one of my dreams I walk away with a lesson. Normally I wake up and it hits me with a whole big wave of intuition. I know exactly what it meant. But this one I didn't really understand. But I think you are exactly right.
And I
That
like it too because it's interesting because you're questioning the answer that you currently have, right? Because you're
exactly.
saying I can't tell it's too big or not, but it's working.
I've saved up a little bit of money. I've got a dream, which is to walk the Appalachian Trail. I've always wanted to do it. And I've always been afraid that as soon as I start touring, I'm going to love it so much that I will never stop, or at least until my body doesn't let me do it anymore. So the current plan is to go walk the trail 4 or 5 months, emerge on the other side, September, October, and hopefully by then the world is ready for some shows. Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe not full scale touring, but like some shows here and there, and I can start to play shows and never stop.
Yeah, I love it.
Right?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, if you want to get excited about it, a good book that I like is called The Walk in the Woods.
Dude, I
Have you
know
read
I
it?
haven't read that book. No, I haven't. A lot of people have told me to go out and get it. That's the
So I got lucky enough. I was in college. I had to introduce Bill Bryson. He was a speaker at
no
our
way.
commencement. So they go like a couple weeks before. They go, "This is how bad I was." Right? They go, "Yeah, Bill Bryson's our speaker. You get to meet and introduce him." And I'm like, "Great. Who's Bill Bryson?" So I was like, I didn't even know who he
Oh
was.
God.
And so they're like, "You don't know who Bill Bryson is?" I was like, "Oh, no, I
Uh,
don't know who he is." And so I just Googled him, and A Walk in the Woods was the first book that came up. I still don't know why. I mean, he's got a lot of other exemplary books. So I was during finals my senior year, read A Walk in the Woods because I was like, and it was the most intense time of my life. Like, there's so much going on, but I still was like, I gotta read this book. And man, it was hilarious and great and beautiful. And he is a really remarkable guy. So if you've
yeah,
read it, great. If you haven't, you should check it out before your walk.
I have not. So I definitely should.
Yeah. And it might inspire you too, because it's also about how he's particularly out of shape and he does it with a friend who's even less in shape than he is. So it'll make you feel more comfortable about the endeavor, I'm sure too, if you're not accustomed to walking that much in your daily life, your daily
Not that
quarantine life
much.
these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, hey, thank you so much for being on.
Oh, dude, of course.
And I love all that you're doing. I love the joy that you bring to what you do. I love the connectivity you bring, the love that you bring. I mean, your email. Tell everybody your email.
jwfrancislovesyou@gmail.com.
How great an email is that? JW Francis loves you. I love it. And so I just and even in speaking with you too, the joy is palpable. And I love your playfulness. I love
Hey,
the approach you're taking, the storytelling, the unafraid to just be making these stories and trying to give people these experiences and connect people. It all makes sense to me now, learning of your origin story too, of you find these things, these beautiful things, and you open it up for other people. I mean, you found this space that other people weren't using and hadn't found, and you turn it into a place where people can come together and make music. I mean, clearly you're creating
trying
that
my
space for your
best.
fans now, and I'm happy to be one.
Hell yeah. Oh, Leland, it means the world to me, dude.